Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay, it looks like I'm live, and we have one person that's visible. There may be other people that have joined that aren't visible on the chat or whatever this is. So this morning, this sutta came to mind. It's somewhat inspired by yesterday's reading. Bhante Jayasara had the second section of reading he did on the Parinibbana Sutta, and this is the sutta where Maurice Walsh says the Buddha's last days. It says Parinibbana is his final passing into Nibbana, the extinguishment of the body. So the body, the five khandhas are ended, and the Buddha does not declare what the state of a Tathagata is after the body perishes. But in that sutta, there was a lot of people experiencing grief. And so this sutta deals with grief of various kinds. Let me put in the chat, I will put, is that it? Okay. If you want to look it up on Sutta Central, I'm putting in the chat, I guess I'll do it. If you look on Sutta Central, you have to use lowercase, and then all the letters and numbers squished together in one line, and use a dot rather than a colon. But in the Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation, I'm going to put kind of a hybrid here. Okay, so I'm actually going to be looking at several suttas because maybe I'll put a dash. That's what I'll do, dash. So it's in the numerical discourses. So I have AN, and it's in the Book of Fives. So the 5, and it's the sutta is 48. Oops, it just popped in there without me clicking on it, but it just automatically went in. I think I see it up, posted. So it's the Anguttara Nikaya, AN 548 to 50. And I think I will start the reading because the Sutta 50 refers back to 48. So I'm going to start reading AN 5.50, and then it's going to refer us back to 48. So that's why it's like that. But I also want to mention the one in between as well, 49. On one occasion, Venerable Narada was dwelling at Pataliputta at the Cox Park. Now, on that occasion, King Munda's wife, Queen Bada, who had been dear and beloved to him, had died. Since her death, he did not bathe, anoint himself, eat meals, undertake his work. Day and night, he remained brooding over Queen Bada's body. Then King Munda addressed his treasurer, Piyaka. Well then, friend Piyaka, immerse the Queen Bada's body in an iron vat filled with oil and enclose it with another iron vat so that we can see Queen Bada's body still longer. So he's trying to preserve the body. Then it occurred to the treasurer Piyaka, King Munda's wife, Queen Bada, has died and is dear and beloved. I'm going to just kind of ellipse it. And then day and night he remains brooding over her body. What ascetic or Brahmin can King Munda visit, so that having heard this Dhamma, he might abandon the dart of sorrow? So this is interesting that this term is used even by a layperson, that there's this dart, your heart is pierced. Maybe it was an expression. So then it occurred to Piyaka, the Venerable Narada is dwelling at Pataliputra, at the Cox Park. Now, a good report about this Venerable Narada has circulated thus: he is wise, competent, intelligent, learned, an artful speaker, eloquent, mature, an arahant. Suppose King Munda would visit the Venerable Narada. Perhaps if he hears the Venerable Narada's Dhamma, he would abandon the dart of sorrow. So then he goes to where, I'm going to just kind of, because I'd like to spend more time on other aspects. He goes and invites, I'm going to skip it. It says, well, he does visit him, and then they have a conversation, and then Venerable Narada says, well then, friend Piyaka, inform the Venerable Narada that he was going to, okay, I'm sorry. So the Piyaka went back and got permission to visit. And so then, okay, so then I'm going to skip down to, then let King Munda come at his convenience. So he's made sure everything's okay for him to come visit. They made the arrangement and convinced the king to visit this ascetic. Then the treasurer Piyaka rose from his seat, paid homage to the Venerable Narada, emulated him, keeping him to his right, sighed towards him, went to King Munda. He told the king, Sire, the Venerable Narada has given his consent. You may go at your own convenience. So they go. I'm skipping just to keep preserving time for what I want to spend more time on. In a fine carriage, he goes to see Venerable Narada. And then Venerable Narada says, Great King, there are these 5 situations that are unobtainable by an ascetic or Brahmin, by Deva, Mara, or Brahma, or anyone in the world. What 5? May what is subject to old age not grow old. This is a situation that is unobtainable by an ascetic or Brahma, by Deva, and so on. May what is subject to illness not fall ill. What is subject to death not die. May what is subject to destruction not be destroyed. This is a situation that is unobtainable by an ascetic or by anyone in the world. May what is subject to loss not be lost. This is a situation that is unobtainable by an ascetic or Brahmin or Deva or Mara or anyone in the world. And then the rest of this is identical to the sutta. This is 48, a couple back. But what's interesting, I want to just mention, is that the number 49, King Pasenadi, is sitting in the presence of the Lord Buddha, and Then a man approached King Pasenadi and whispered in his ear, "Sire, Queen Malika has just died." When this was said, King Pasenadi was pained, saddened, and he sat there with slumping shoulders, facing downward, glum and speechless. And then the Blessed One, having known the king's condition, said this to him. So this teaching is also given to King Pasenadi when he lost his dear wife Malika. And if you follower of the suttas, you know that they had this really wonderful relationship, and she actually brought him to the Dhamma, brought him to the Buddhist teaching. So this is I'll just read it from the start, just so we go over the key issue here, and this is that people may wish for these situations to be so, but they're not, or maybe subconsciously we wish this, or we're in denial of it. But it's presented here that this is something that's unobtainable. And Bhante Sujato says, he titles this "Things That Cannot Be Had." And there's this word that you might not, if you click on the word, you don't get a good definition for it. But it's alabaniyang is how it appears. And labati is to gain, or gain or obtain, and the alabati would be not gaining. And this appears in this word, actually, if you're used to reciting the Anatalakkhana Sutta, the three characteristics that it's not possible to wish for our form, feelings, perceptions, or the five khandhas, formations, however you want to change this, however you want to translate that part, and consciousness that we might wish for them to be a particular way. May they be this way, may they be permanent, may they be free of suffering, may they be self, but we can't wish for that. We can wish all we want, but that's not possible to obtain. I think this is you can say, may my body be this, may my body not be this, but we can't obtain that control. So this is related actually to that. This labati, but it's alaba niyani is how the grammatical form, and I don't know enough polygramma to explain all that to you, but I know is not, is negation, not gaining. So not gaining one's wishes is dukkha. This is also in the teachings. So the situations is how it's the title of this, number 48 in the Book of Five. So it's AN 548, because there are these 5 situations that are unobtainable by an ascetic or Brahma, by Deva, Mara, or Brahma, or by anyone in the world. What 5? May what is subject to old age not grow old. This is a situation that is unobtainable. So on. May what is subject to illness not fall ill. This is a situation that is unobtainable by ascetic or by anyone in the world. May what is subject to death not die. This is a situation that is unobtainable by an ascetic or anyone in the world. May what is subject to destruction not be destroyed. This is a situation that is unobtainable by an ascetic or by anyone in the world. May what is subject to loss not be lost. This is a situation that is unobtainable by an ascetic or Brahma or Deva or Mara or Brahma or anyone in the world. Bhikkhus, for an uninstructed worldling, what is subject to old age grows old. When this happens, he, she, they do not reflect thus. I am not the only one for whom what is subject to old age grows old. For beings that come and go, that pass away and undergo rebirth, what is subject to old age grows old. If I were to sorrow, languish, lament, weep, beating my breast, and become confused, when what is subject to old age grows old, I would lose my appetite, my features would become ugly, I would not be able to do my work, my enemies would be elated, and my friends would become saddened. Thus, when what is subject to old age grows old, he, she, they sorrow, languish, lament, weep, beating their breast, and they become confused. This is called an uninstructed worldling, pierced by the poisonous dart of sorrow, who only torments himself. So this, I just picture like someone piercing oneself with a dart or arrow and then just like twisting it. And, I mean, it's just so graphic, you know. And so there's the first arrow, the Buddha talks about the first dart or arrow, and that's just something happening, you know, something painful happening. We do lose somebody or something that's dear to us gets broken, you know, our grandmother's china or something that we've had known since our childhood, and we drop it and it shatters. And then you can be devastated just from something like that, or someone very dear to you passes away. And this is why it talks about sickness, aging, death, destruction, and loss. This gives it, Bhante Bodhi's translation has a little bit of broader spectrum than Bhante Sujato's. If you've got that in front of you, he says, someone liable to old age should not grow old, that someone liable to sickness should not get sick, so that someone dear to us is aging and becoming ill. We don't want that to happen. Someone liable to death should not die. Someone liable to ending, he says, someone ending and someone perishing. But that it's almost redundant there. With Bhante Bodhi's translation, he's got, you can see it more broadly. You can not just people, but things that are dear to us, things that have a, you know, like we're cherishing them because they have a value, or because of the emotional value, that reminding of us, our dear grandma or something like that. And then it gets lost or destroyed. So people torment themselves over things like that. Oh, how could I have done that? Or how could somebody else have done that? You know, destroyed that precious thing. This is self-torment. The uninstructed worldling is pierced by the poisonous dart of sorrow, who only torments himself. And actually, this is definitely related to the second noble truth, that the cause of suffering is not is wanting, is the craving. So we're craving things to be other than they are. We're craving things to be permanent when they're impermanent. So we cause ourselves a lot of grief wanting things to be other. That's not wanting, not attaining one's wishes. That's another labati is there in that. Not attaining one's wishes is dukkha. So, see, Bhante Sujato says, they don't reflect on old age. It's not just me who has someone liable to old age who grows old. For as long as sentient beings come and go, pass away, are reborn, they all have someone liable to old age who grows old. So that's clarifying it in that aspect. And then they don't reflect about how the impact, if they do grieve excessively, how it's going to affect them. They get confused, they get sick. Like this one king, he wasn't eating, he wasn't doing his kingly duties, and other people started getting worried about him. He says, my work wouldn't get done, my enemies would be encouraged, and my friends would be dispirited. And so when someone is liable to old age, grows old, they do end up sorrowing, wailing, lamenting, and so on, and falling into confusion. And this is called an unlearned, ordinary person struck by sorrow's poisoned arrow, who only mortifies themselves. I like torment. That sounds to me that you're tormenting yourself. But I do appreciate Bhante Sujato. We all have our druthers about these things, about translations. And people can spend hours arguing over a point, like, what is the meaning of Sankara? How did you find that? You can spend hours researching and arguing about it. But I think language in any culture has more than one way of understanding it. So this goes on for all the other ones that, again, for an uninstructed worldling, what is subject to illness falls ill, what is subject to death dies, what is subject to destruction is destroyed, what is subject to loss is lost. When that happens, they do not reflect that I am not the only one for whom what is subject to loss is lost. So this is a good reflection too. Sometimes you do feel isolated and like, why me? And this is the only I am experiencing. How could anyone understand what I'm experiencing now, having lost something very dear to me, someone very dear to me? For all beings who come and go, who pass away and undergo rebirth, what is subject to loss is loss. So everyone loses things. And I was talking to somebody else, like if you lost a child, if your child was lost, you'd just be devastated. A parent would be devastated until the child is found. And sometimes they're never found. And that's a very devastating thing. Or people missing in action and war, parents are just, it's almost worse than knowing that they passed away if they never know what happened to them. So if I were to sorrow, languish, lament, weep, beating my breast, and become confused when what is subject to loss is lost, I would lose my appetite. So they're not reflecting this. And when what is subject to loss is lost, they sorrow, languish, lament, weep, beating their breast, and become confused. So I don't know if this was a classic form of grief where people would actually do these things. Some society, there's traditional expressions of grief. And then they're bringing in the sutta that was read yesterday, the Parinibbana Sutta, where people were falling over as if their feet were cut off and they were rolling around and they're tearing out their hair and grieving. And it's very extreme, that seems very extreme, but maybe that was normal in that society. So how grief is expressed. And some people won't eat, and that's even supported. They won't eat for a period of time. And then just in our society too, people become depressed and shut in. And when I was in nursing, I heard the statistic about if couples have been together for many years and one of the couple dies, it's very typical. Within a year, the other will die, even if it didn't seem like there was anything wrong with that other person. So this was called I think it was called a broken heart syndrome or something like that. There was even a name for it. So just the impact of grief maybe made whatever physical condition they might be liable to just manifest and get worse. And then they pass away. Or they're not caring for themselves the way they should. So whatever. This is what the normal uninstructed person. This is called an uninstructed worldling pierced by the poisonous dart of sorrow who only torments himself or herself or themselves. So this goes on for hope. And this is a Bhante J yesterday, at one point says, I want to be more like this person. And this is the person we should model ourselves with. Because for the instructed noble disciple, what is subject to old age grows old. When this happens, he or she or they reflect. Thus, I'm not the only one for whom what is subject to old age grows old. For all beings that come and go, that pass away and undergo rebirth, what is subject to old age grows old. If I were to sorrow, languish, lament, weep, beating my breast, and become confused, when what is subject to old age grows old, I would lose my appetite, and my features would become ugly. I would not be able to do my work. My enemies would become elated, and my friends would become saddened. Thus, what is subject to old age grows old. He, she, they do not sorrow, languish, lament, weep, beating their breasts, and be confused. This is called the instructed noble disciple who has drawn out the poisonous dart of sorrow, pierced by which the uninstructed worldling only torments themselves. Sorrowless, without darts, the noble disciples realizes Nibbana. This is pretty powerful. So the Arhats, when the Lord Buddha died, it was like they were clearly comprehending. I was trying to get the wording of what, and they just reflected on this is the nature of all things. All conditioned things have the nature to die, nature to be destroyed, everything's impermanent. So they knew that this was going to happen. So why torment yourself? So this is a training, really. There's a training of 5 subjects of frequent recollection that some places they recite daily, some places frequently. But this is for both people in robes and people who are lay disciples. of the Buddha. And that is also in the Book of Fives. It's AN 557, and it's Bhante Bodhi translates it as themes. And we're chanting Bya Damomhi, Bya Da Anatita. And it's I am of the nature to age, or to become ill. Byadi. It's Byadi Damomhi. And it's Jara Damomhi. So that's just the nature, this is how it's been translated. But that appears also in this sutta. The Damomhi, the Dhamma, is the nature. It's of the nature. So we reflect on that not only ourselves, but for all those beings, living beings, and all our possessions, everything is impermanent. Everything's going to wear out, be destroyed. So we have this training to reflect on that for ourselves, our own lives, and lives of others. These are all impermanent. So they are not pierced by the poisonous dart. They have drawn out the poisonous dart of sorrow rather than tormenting themselves with the poisonous dart of sorrow. Sorrowless without darts, the noble disciple realizes nibbana. So we don't have to make it seem like one extreme or the other. It often is presented this way in the suttas, but I think if we have something to aim towards, like we say, I want to be more like the arahants. I don't want to be rolling around on the ground, pulling out my hair, grieving like that. I would rather be reflecting, clearly comprehending, mindful, aware that, yes, this is the nature of things. This is the nature of all things. We may feel the first arrow, but we don't have to torment ourselves. The arahant will have extracted the arrow, but we don't have to torment ourselves with the arrow of grief. So I'd just like to interject that part, even though it's not mentioned here, but there are this is a training. So again, it goes through all the instructed disciple. For the instructed disciple, what is subject to illness grows ill, what is subject to death dies, what is subject to destruction is destroyed, what is subject to loss is lost. And when that happens, they reflect, I am not the only one for whom what is subject to loss is lost. For all beings that come and go, that pass away and undergo rebirth, for what is subject to loss is lost. And if I were to sorrow and so on and become confused and lose my appetite, it wouldn't be helpful for me or anyone else, except for maybe my enemies would rejoice in it. That sounds pretty bad, but sometimes that happens. So thus, when what is subject to loss is lost, they do not sorrow, languish, lament, and so on. They don't become confused. This is called a noble disciple who has drawn out the poisonous dart of sorrow. Pierced by which the uninstructed worldling only torments themselves. Sorrowless without darts, that noble disciple realizes nibbana. And then the Lord Buddha concludes, these 5 situations that are unobtainable, these are the 5 situations that are unobtainable by anybody in the world. And then there's a poem here. It is not by sorrowing and lamenting that even the least good here can be gained, knowing that one is knowing that one is sorrowful and sad, one's enemies are elated. When the wise person does not shake in adversities, knowing how to determine what is good, his enemies are saddened, having seen that his former facial expression does not change. Wherever one might gain one's good, in whatever way, by chanting mantras, maxims, gifts, or tradition, there one should exert oneself in just this way. This one I quite understand. But if one should understand this good cannot be obtained by me or anyone else, one should accept the situation without sorrowing, thinking, the karma is strong. What can I do now? So I guess if there are means of obtaining what you can obtain, go ahead and do it. But if you can't, you have to really understand the nature of things. And this is an interesting last line here. The karma is strong. What can I do now? So we have a little bit of time left. And I'll see if there's any questions. I could say, I guess it's our tradition to say hello to everyone. Hello to Poonam, Manel, Philip, and Buddhist Insights, that's Usha, and then it looks like, I'm not sure what the characters are. I'm sorry, I can't read that. Could be, I could guess, but I'm not sure. Rambo, Krishna, Sud, and John. Not see any questions so far. Any questions or comments from those here, the venerables here? This is all pretty. So this is a powerful sutta. And I think, yeah, it's paired with that in my mind. I think of the 5 subjects for frequent recollection. These two go together well. The 5 subjects, it says sabehi me piehi mana pehi nana bhavo vina bhavo. That's like all that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise, will become separated from me. So that's included in thinking about oneself, subject to sickness, aging, and death. And so yes?
Well, thought, it reminds me this thing about that reflection. For example, we'll be parted from everything that we hold dear. And the sutta, using the sutta as a contemplation when someone passes away to allay our grief, reminds me of how, it seems to me anyway, that we apply these mental skills in the situation as appropriate. Because it reminds me also of mudita, the formula for mudita, which is may all beings not be separated from the good fortune they have attained. And so when we're feeling jealousy, for example, I've heard that mudita is specifically the antidote for jealousy, for the gains of someone else, when we do this reflection.
Mm-hmm.
But then if we're experiencing grief over the loss of something or someone, then we do kind of the opposite reflection, that things which are subject to loss must be lost.
Yes.
Does it sound reasonable? It's kind of
Yeah, I think, because it's not one size fits all of the teaching, because there are different situations, and I don't know if everyone could hear what Tan Wade was saying. Yeah, but just reflecting on not only grieving, that we should abandon grief for things that we've lost, but we can rejoice in what other people have gained, and that's an antidote for jealousy. So that's kind of this a broad spectrum around loss and gain. And there's also the worldly winds talk about too, is that the subject to not to rejoice too much when we gain something, because there's always going to be loss. So, but yeah, I think it's a balance of it. We're trying to achieve a balance of mind by reflecting these various ways. And yeah, and it is kind of funny. Sometimes you think, well, may they not be parted from what they gained. We're wishing that this is a kind of mudita, right? And so, and you think, oh, well, the Lord Buddha says that everything's impermanent and what's subject to loss will be lost. And we're saying, but we can rejoice in people's good qualities, and if they, gained what they needed, materially, we can rejoice in that. And it's just a good-heartedness, I guess, is I've been thinking about that too. Is like, well, why do we say that if we know that things are like, I'm wishing someone, may you be well, may you be happy, and but that it's the same thing. I'm wishing for their happiness, wishing for their wellness, wishing that they have what they need at least. So that uplifts my heart, and then I'm but if it's not happening, maybe that's related to this poem at the end. It says, whatever one might gain, wherever one might gain one's good in whatever way, by chanting mantras, maxims, gifts, or tradition, there one should exert oneself in just that way. So there's things that we can do maybe to help benefit ourselves, like if these kind of acts make result in these meritorious deeds might result in merit for ourselves, and prevent us from getting ill, or if our dear ones getting ill or whatever, because that's what people do. They come to the temple and they say, I'm dedicating the merit to my grandmother, but she's going to die eventually, or she's already passed away. We're wishing for a better rebirth for her. But so we should exert ourselves in doing good, and even like that mantra or maxims or gifts or tradition. So this maybe the mudita is kind of like, this is wishing well, and we're doing the best we can. And I've heard people that are sick, and if they have a lot of people are doing metta bhavana for them, that actually helps them. I've heard this again and again. And so, and then it says, so Joe, we should exert ourselves, but if we should understand this good cannot be obtained by me or anyone else, then one should accept the situation without sorrowing, thinking, the karma is strong. What can I do now? So how do I address the situation?
Right.
Someone who is, I don't want them to be ill, and they're ill, so I do what I can to take care of themselves. I don't want them to die, and I care for them the best I can. They pass away. What else can be done? No, yes.
There's a whole series of suttas where it's literally translated as, and this cannot be had by wishing. Like even with the 5, it may be that you would wish that would one who is subject to old age not grow old. This is not to be had by wishing. So there's a lot of many things that, because of impermanence, because of these things, you can wish all you want, but wishing is not going to
Right.
fix it.
Right. Yeah. So it is saying we can doing what we can,
Yes.
including mantras and all this, dedicating merit and offering gifts and things like that. We can do all that, and it is helpful to a certain extent, but just by wishing and wanting it, what's inevitable not to happen, even no matter what we do. The karma is strong. Maybe someone dies early in it, why, even though I was such a good person and wonderful, dedicating merit, and then they still died. It's like, it's just karma is beyond our understanding. So these things happen. So I think that may be what this last bit is about. And understand this good cannot be obtained by me or anyone else. Nothing can be done to prevent people from aging and dying, or dying young, or I get lost. Somebody, I lose something very precious to me, no matter how well I took care of it. Somehow it gets lost from me. So, someone is putting in the time. Ranga. 45. I don't understand what all that is about. Every second?
No, they're commenting, but there's nothing in the comment. That's all that is.
Oh, okay.
It's just something kind of like a spamming or something. I don't know
what it is. Something from Facebook. Ranga. Okay. Okay. Oh, I can't just touch it and go up. Sorry, Ranga. We don't understand what you're saying. Okay, here is a question. We have a little bit of time. But yeah, there are a lot of suttas that talk about not having, we can't, no matter how much we wish for things, it's not necessarily going to happen that way. Okay. So someone's asking, is loving kindness, this is Sud, is loving kindness in this case just coming from awareness and acceptance of situations? And I guess by knowing that, we realize that the six senses are not self eventually. Oh, this is a complex question. So loving kindness, Ajahn Chanichiro talks about wishing for well-being. This is where instead of ill will, it's goodwill. Goodwill is a translation that maybe, because there's in our heart, we're wishing for well for everyone. Ultimately, I guess we would wish that they would awaken. That would be the ultimate wish. But we're wishing for their happiness and wishing for their well-being. And in the case of mudita, would be rejoicing in their goodness and well-being and what they've rightfully gained. But awareness and acceptance of the situation. I'm not sure how that. If I have goodwill, I can also be aware, no matter how much I wish for somebody's wellness and longevity and so on, that they are going to become sick and die. That would be acceptance. And if you have goodwill for somebody and they're sick and dying, you're accepting the situation. Maybe you're able to go to their bedside and be with them and hold their hand or give them, what they need while they're passing away to help them be more comfortable or whatever. So you're not going to get the wish for them to stay alive, the wish for them to be well, the wish for them to be, that's not going to do anything. But you're just wishing for their comfort and happiness, and your own, that would also help for your own acceptance. You have to accept that situation is happening. And then you can be with people that are suffering, or even to be with somebody who's grieving. I can accept that person is not gonna be able at this point in their life to be able to pull out that dart, and they are tormenting themselves. So I can sit with that person and accept, yes, this person is upset, and they're not gonna they're not gonna listen to me, no matter if I say, "Oh, pull out that poisonous dart, don't torment yourself." I can just sit with them and say, "Oh, I see you're very upset, and I understand this is very upsetting to you, and that person was very dear to you," or whatever it is that you can say to them, or just sit with them, hand them a tissue box, and listen to them grieve. So that would be an act of loving kindness, or that would be goodwill. That would be in the realm of goodwill. Just wishing them in your heart, you're wishing them well, wishing them free from grief, but they are grieving, so you can't stop it. Just sometimes people just have to get through it. But just your being there. So that's the acceptance of the situation, knowing that we realize that the six senses are not self eventually. Yeah, it seems almost like a different topic or a different subject. And I think that with non-self, we are developing equanimity, and we will be more accepting of what's going on. The six senses are connected with Vedana, which is feeling of pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. So, yeah, this is very complex. I don't know that the two. Loving kindness would be a pleasant feeling and would help you with accepting things as they are. And if you see it as non-self, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so the six sense basis and non-self are everything's interrelated. But I would have to write some kind of a thesis paper or something like that to encompass. I'm sorry, I'm joking, but it would take quite a bit to piece all of that together. It does interrelate, and you're probably working with these different components and seeing this relationship yourself. But I think I would have to be speaking for about an hour to work all that in. So I appreciate your seeing the connections, because I do that too. Sometimes these things interconnect in my mind, but I would have to talk about it for an hour or more. So there's new comments. Okay, down to Philip. And Philip is I say, that's where it makes a lot of sense to me, how the absence of suffering is happiness. You're relinquishing the unwise attachment to something that has limited your ability for happiness. So yeah, this is really the Four Noble Truths is talking about happiness. It's how we cause ourselves suffering, and to relinquish the causes of suffering is happiness. The absence of suffering is happiness, yes. So you're relinquishing the unwise attachment to something. So unwise attachment, yeah. Somebody, I think it was IIT, was talking. When you're driving, you have to hold on to the steering wheel. When you get to the place where you're going and you park, you let go and you get out of the car. So this unwise attachment would be knowing when to hold on to something. And stupid attachment would be just, I can't let go of the steering wheel, get out of the car. I've gotten to where I'm going, but I can't, because I'm still grabbing on. So that just popped in my mind thinking about unwise attachment. So there's wise attachment. We know when, like when someone's sick and dying, you don't let go of them then. You don't abandon them then. You're there for them. And when they pass away, then you let go. If you're hanging on to this image of the person when they were young and healthy, and they start getting old and they start having a lot of health problems, and then you abandon them, that's just for that sake, then that's cruel. That's not human. That's not, people do that. People end up marrying other people because their wife, that there's these men that are wealthy that always have young wives. By the time the wife gets to be 35 and they divorce her and they get a 20-year-old wife, she starts having health problems, send her back to her family, get rid of her. And so that's just really selfish. And that's another point of grasping, which causes a lot of suffering, because they're getting old. They're not avoiding aging themselves. So anyway, yes, absence of suffering is happiness, and relinquishing of unwise attachment is something that has limited your ability for happiness. Okay, yes, absolutely, yes.
You're mentioning using the term letting go, and of course the term letting go I think can be used in different ways in different situations. And so oftentimes the way I think of letting go is the kind of the emotional attachment. So whether you're in a situation, say we're caregiving, if we say we're letting go, not to be attached and to let go, it's about kind of the emotional involvement with the situation. But this is a kind of letting go you're talking about actually like whether or not you perform the caregiving. Is this a different way of talking about letting go, or is this the same? I'm a little bit confused. So.
Well, I was looking at his words, unwise attachment. So where would wise attachment come in? So I just came in still bringing in the idea of sickness, aging, and death. If I'm detached in an unhealthy way, yeah, but I think when a person is dying, you have to be letting them go, and you have to give them permission. Actually, Ajahn Brahm talks about giving permission to the person to die. That somebody was really hanging in there for a long period of time. The husband was young and dying, and then the wife, he had to tell the wife, give your husband permission to pass away. Mm-hmm. And so she said, darling, I love you, and I give you permission to pass away. And he died soon after that. Uh-huh. But it's like there are cases where people cling to a person who's dying, and then it's hard for them. Yeah, there's some kind of some life force that keeps going because people are still clinging to that person. And it's really painful for them, and it's difficult for them to let go, or they do die, but they die kind of distressed because they're leaving their loved ones behind. But if the loved ones say, darling, I love you, I give you permission to pass away, then they don't worry about me. There's even this beautiful sutta where was it the son is dying, and the son is worrying about his father, and the father says, "Don't worry about me." And then Lord Buddha, that is such beautiful, just listen to what the Lord Buddha is saying. Don't worry about me. I'll be all right. And so it gives him giving permission to others to die. So that's unwise attachment would be not wanting something that's inevitable to happen. And so I was just responding to his reflection, that Philip's reflection about how the absence of suffering is happiness, and relinquishing unwise attachment to something. Yeah. And so there is a time where it's just like Ajahn Chah talks about seeing the glass already broken. So I'm not going to be careless with because it's impermanent, I'm not going to be careless with it. I'm going to take care of it. But when it breaks, then it's broken. Or I'll take responsibility. So this is my, let's say that I only have one bowl. So I need to take care of my bowl and be responsible, or trust somebody else will be responsible for my bowl. But if it gets lost or stolen or somehow damaged, even a metal bowl is impermanent. So caring for things, and you might say that's a form of attachment because this is my bowl, this is my body, so I take care of them. But
it's natural until we're going to be attached to things anyway. And so having some wisdom about it, at least to some degree, is a big step forward, right? So
so the arahants aren't going to just wander out into the street in busy traffic without looking both ways. They're going to be careful crossing the street. But when, or they're going to be careful with their requisites.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So someone can't post. Some people are trying to comment. Oh, okay. Richard is doing Anjali's. And then there's some people that can't post comments that tried.
You should be mindful of the time, right?
And then it's 9:03. So this is a delightful conversation about sickness, aging, death, loss, destruction. But what Philip said, yes, this is happiness, is not being attached. Being able to let go when it's appropriate. So thank you all. All of you take care of yourself, and I rejoice in all your goodness. And we'll see you the next time.
Tonight, Monk Chat.
Tonight is Monk Chat, and I'm not sure who's on the docket for that, but we'll see you all later.
We take this opportunity to sadhu your Sutta discussion. Hanjamayang tamakataya sadhu karang tatamase sadhu 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 anumodami.
Sadhu to all of you too.
Thank you, Aya.